Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going behind the scenes at, well, it's a global construction giant, you know?
Wow.
This company's been around for like over 3.5 centuries.
Yeah, it's amazing. Over 350 years. Can you imagine the amount of change they've seen in that time?
It's incredible. And they're still going strong, but that doesn't mean they're not facing challenges, right?
Right. Especially when you think about the scale of their operations. They have over 167,000 employees operating in over 100 countries.
That's a lot of moving parts. Just keeping everything running smoothly must be a huge task. And that's what we're really diving into today, right? How they tackled this massive problem of, well, inefficient maintenance and how they completely transformed things with a mobile solution.
And they produce everything. I mean, everything from glass to abrasives to ceramics. You can see how, at that scale, even a tiny hiccup in maintenance could cause huge problems.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So to start with, what was I guess, the old system like?
Well, basically, everything was manual. They were relying on tons and tons of paper for everything.
Oh, I can already see the problems with that. Lots of paper floating around.
Exactly. Mountains of checklists, forms being passed around, and it was, well, it was just a mess. Information got lost. It took forever. There were errors all over the place.
Quite expensive, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, incredibly costly. The case study mentions, get this, one time a single checklist got missed, and it ended up shutting down production for 3 weeks.
3 weeks. That's just unbelievable. And for any company, but especially one of that size.
Exactly. So that was a turning point for them. They knew something had to change.
Yeah, I bet. So what were they looking for when they decided to go for a digital solution?
Well, a few things were really important. First, obviously, they wanted to get rid of all that paper, go completely digital.
Right, makes sense.
And then the second big thing was they needed whatever they chose to integrate with their existing SAP system, and in real time, too.
Okay, now for those of us who might not know, what is SAP?
Think of it as the central nervous system of a large organization. It manages pretty much everything, from finance and HR to all the supply chain stuff and manufacturing.
Okay, so for this company, SAP is how they manage all their sites, the equipment, all their resources, dot everything.
Pretty much. So getting maintenance data to flow smoothly between the systems was crucial.
So it sounds like, I mean, just from those two requirements, they needed something pretty robust.
Oh, absolutely. And they had a couple more things, too. They needed a solution that could handle both preventative maintenance, to keep things from breaking down in the first place, and then corrective maintenance, basically being able to fix things quickly when they did go wrong.
Okay, so they needed a system that could do it all.
Exactly. Keep things running smoothly and fix problems fast when they popped up, keeping everything going.
Sounds like quite the challenge.
Oh, wait.
But there was one more thing they wanted, right? And this is the part that I found really interesting. They needed it to work offline.
That's right.
Now, why was that so important?
Well, think about it. Construction sites, they aren't exactly known for their super reliable Wi-Fi, are they?
Yeah, that's true.
They needed something that their technicians could use, seamlessly, even in the middle of nowhere, even with no internet.
Ah, so they could still access their work orders, look up stuff in the manuals, check safety procedures, all that, no matter where they were.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's where Sigga comes in, right? With their mobile maintenance solution.
Yeah, that's right. Sigga was able to deliver on all those points, and they did it in a way that really tackled the company's, well, their specific challenges. It wasn't just some off-the-shelf software, It was designed to solve their exact problems.
So let's get into some of the specifics. You mentioned SAP integration earlier. How did that actually work, and why was it so crucial for a company of this size?
Well, going back to SAP as the nervous system, it connects every single department and function. And in this case, the company relied on SAP to manage this giant network of sites, equipment, resources, all of it.
So if they could get their maintenance data into SAP, it meant everything was all in one place, right?
Exactly. It gets rid of those data silos,
Yeah.
No more manual entry, and everyone's working with the same up-to-date information. That's essential if you want people to make smart decisions.
Makes sense. So no more running around with spreadsheets and paper forms trying to keep track of everything.
Exactly. Imagine trying to coordinate hundreds of sites like that.
It would be chaos.
Total chaos.
Okay, so SAP integration was key for efficiency and accuracy. And then you mentioned offline functionality. How did that work in practice?
It's pretty clever, actually. The technicians, they could download all the information they needed, work orders, manuals, safety guidelines, everything, right to their phone or tablet.
Oh, okay.
So even if they're completely off the grid, they still have everything they need to do their jobs.
Like having a little portable office right there on their device.
Exactly. And then once they're back online, it all automatically syncs back to the central system.
So it's updating even while they're offline. I
Yeah.
see. Seamlessly.
Okay, so we've got the SAP integration, we've got the offline capabilities. What else did this solution offer that really made a difference for them?
Well, one of the things that really addressed a major pain point was dynamic forms. Now, picture this. You're in charge of maintaining all kinds of different equipment, right? Bulldozers, cranes, excavators, the whole lot.
Yeah.
And each piece of equipment needs something a little different, right?
Right, so it's not a one-size-fits-all approach to maintenance.
Exactly. So with these dynamic forms, they could create custom checklists and data entry fields for every single piece of equipment.
Oh, I see.
So instead of using some generic form that might miss crucial details, technicians would have a checklist tailored just for that machine, making sure they were capturing the right information every time.
Okay, that makes sense. It's all about cutting down on those errors, being more accurate, and ultimately making sure that the maintenance is done properly, right?
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about keeping the machines running either. It's about safety, too. Making sure that the technicians have all the right info right there that can prevent accidents and make sure they're following procedures.
Right. So it's about keeping people safe, too. Good point.
It all ties together.
So they've got the SAP thing, the offline mode, and these dynamic forms to keep everything running smoothly. What else did they have? I remember you mentioning something about, was it real-time stock checks?
Yes, that was another big one for them.
Mhm.
They needed to be able to check if they had spare parts instantly, right there on their device.
Mhm.
No more calling back to the warehouse or waiting for someone to go and check inventory manually.
Yeah.
With real-time stock checks, technicians could see exactly what parts were available, where they were, and even order stuff right there on the spot if they needed to.
Oh, that's going to be a huge time saver. No more sitting around waiting for parts to arrive.
Right. And it saves money, too,
How so?
because they could actually see their inventory, you know? That way they could avoid overstocking parts that might never get used.
So it's about efficiency, accuracy, and cost savings. It sounds like this solution really addressed all the key issues they were facing.
It really did. But then the question became, how do you actually implement something like this in a company that's so massive? I mean, it sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Yeah, I bet. So how did they actually do it?
They were smart about it. Instead of trying to roll it out to over 100 countries all at once, they started with a pilot program, just at one of their sites in the UK.
Okay, why that one?
Well, a couple of reasons. First, that site already had really high standards for their operations. They figured if they could get it to work perfectly there, they could get it to work anywhere, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And second, they wanted to start somewhere close to their headquarters so they could easily support the team and gather feedback during the initial implementation.
So it was a strategic decision to start small and then scale up from there. Got it. So how did that initial pilot program go?
It went really well. They worked hand in hand with Sigga's consultants to make sure everything went smoothly. And one smart thing they did was focus on training internal project leaders.
What do you mean?
So these internal leaders would be in charge of the rollouts at other sites later on. It meant they were building internal expertise from the get-go, you know? They weren't just relying on outside consultants. They were making sure their own people could own the solution.
Ah, okay. So it was about empowering their own team to take charge of the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that probably helped with people actually adopting the system, right?
Yeah, it makes sense having people on the ground who are already familiar with it and could help their colleagues out.
Right. And they also developed in-app user guides so technicians could easily learn how to use the system. They didn't need tons of classroom training or complicated manuals. It was all right there on the app.
Okay, so they had the pilot in the UK, they trained up their team, they made these user-friendly guides. It sounds like they really set themselves up for success with the global rollout.
They really did. And all of this was happening, get this, during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Talk about bad timing. Travel restrictions, lockdowns, everyone working remotely. It created a whole new set of hurdles for them to jump over.
I bet. So how did they keep things on track with all of that going on?
They embraced all the remote collaboration tools, you know, held virtual training sessions, and really relied on that internal team they'd trained up during the pilot. The fact that they were able to implement everything so quickly, even with all the disruptions from the pandemic, is pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing. It shows how committed they were to making this digital transformation happen.
Definitely. But the big question is, Did it actually deliver? Did all this effort actually lead to real, tangible results?
That is the big question, isn't it? Well, that's what we'll dive into
Sounds
next.
good.
So they had the vision, right? They found the solution and they actually implemented it even with a global pandemic happening. Amazing. But did it actually work? Did this new system actually live up to all the, I guess, the hype and make a real difference for this company?
Well, the short answer is yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's more than just, checking off boxes. It's about the real, tangible results they saw. For example, after implementing the Sigga solution, they saw a 25% reduction in maintenance downtime across all their sites globally.
Wow, 25%. That's a huge improvement. What does that translate to, like, in real world terms?
Well, think about it this way. Every hour that a piece of critical equipment is down, it can cost them thousands of dollars in lost productivity.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So by reducing downtime by 25%, they're not just saving time, they're saving a significant amount of money. We're talking potentially millions of dollars every year across their operations.
So it's a pretty incredible return on investment then. But it's not all about saving money, right? What other benefits did they see?
They also saw a 15% improvement in their work order completion rates, meaning they could close out maintenance issues much faster and more efficiently.
So they're saving time, they're saving money, they're fixing things faster. It sounds like a win-win-win all around. But you mentioned something earlier about the solution having a wider impact, even outside of the maintenance department. What did you mean by that?
Well, one really interesting thing they saw was that other areas of the business started to benefit from the system too. Like the production team started using the dynamic forms we talked about to handle some of the maintenance tasks themselves.
Wait, so people who weren't actually in the maintenance department were using the system?
Exactly. It wasn't just for technicians anymore. The production teams were using the mobile solution to log small issues, do routine checks, even help troubleshoot some things.
So it was like breaking down the walls between those departments, encouraging more collaboration and shared responsibility.
Exactly. It helped shift that old mindset of maintenance is someone else's problem and created a culture where everyone understood that, hey, keeping things running smoothly is important for all of us.
Yeah, I like that. A more holistic approach to maintenance.
Right. And that shift in culture, it's just as important as the technology itself, honestly.
Yeah.
It wasn't just implementing new software. It was implementing a whole new way of thinking about maintenance.
So to recap, they're saving time, they're reducing costs, they're more efficient, they've got their workforce more engaged, and they've got a more collaborative culture. It really seems like this digital transformation was a huge success.
It was, but it wasn't magic, right? It took a lot of planning. They had to make strategic decisions, and everyone had to be committed to making the change happen. And don't forget, this all happened during a pandemic.
Oh, yeah?
They had to be flexible and able to adapt and, really roll with the punches.
It's easy to get caught up in the tech stuff and forget about the people involved. But it sounds like they really prioritized their people throughout the whole process.
For sure. They invested in training their people. They let them take the lead on the implementation, and they made sure everyone had the support they needed to make the transition.
They realized that technology is just a tool, ultimately. It's the people who make it all work.
Exactly. That's a good lesson for any organization thinking about going digital. It's not just about the software. It's about investing in your people, making sure you've got a culture of collaboration, and being willing to embrace a new way of working.
So speaking of new ways of working, you mentioned earlier that this company's already looking ahead. What's next for them?
They're definitely not content with just staying where they are. They're already looking at Sigga's planning and scheduling solution so they can optimize their maintenance even more.
So they're going even further with this, trying to be more efficient and proactive. What does that look like in practice?
Imagine being able to predict when a piece of equipment is going to fail, like before it actually happens. You could look at its usage history, sensor data, different factors like that.
That sounds a little bit like something from the future. Is that actually possible?
It is, and it's called predictive maintenance. Basically, you're using data and analytics to figure out what might go wrong before it does.
Wow, that's incredible. So instead of waiting for something to break down and then scrambling to fix it, they can just schedule maintenance ahead of time and keep those machines running.
Exactly. You minimize downtime and the equipment lasts longer. It's about shifting from reacting to problems to anticipating them.
It's like having a crystal ball for your equipment.
Yeah, kind of. And that's just one example of how digital transformation is changing the whole maintenance landscape. The possibilities are pretty exciting.
It's amazing to see how far they've come, from piles of paper to actually predicting the future in just a few years.
It really shows how willing they were to embrace change and try new things. They really believe in technology and how it can transform their business.
Yeah, so don't let the idea of digital transformation scare you off. It's not about being a tech expert or anything. It's about taking those small steps, making strategic changes.
Right, and understanding that technology is just a tool. It's about helping you work smarter, not harder.
It's about using technology to enhance what we can do, you know? Amplify our creativity, collaborate better, solve problems more effectively.
Exactly, that's where the real magic happens.
We've seen how this construction company took on this challenge of inefficient maintenance, and the results are incredible. Streamlined processes, millions of dollars saved, a more empowered workforce, more collaboration.
They're not stopping there. They're constantly looking ahead, finding new ways to use technology to make their business even better and stay ahead of the curve.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. Think about, what are your pain points? Where do you see inefficiencies in your own work or your organization?
Take a minute and think about your daily tasks, the processes you're involved in. Where do you hit those roadblocks? What's frustrating you? What's eating up way more time than it should?
It's easy to think, well, is it really worth it to change things up? What's the benefit? But the potential benefits are huge. Imagine how much time you could save if you weren't constantly battling with these clunky systems or searching for information everywhere.
It's about working smarter, not harder, right? And freeing up your time and energy to focus on the stuff that really matters, the work you're passionate about.
The work that makes a real impact.
The construction company's story is a perfect example of that. They streamlined everything, and it freed up their team to focus on innovating, growing the business, and delivering more value to their customers.
It's about more than just fixing problems. It's about opening up new possibilities. So what are some concrete steps we can take? Where do you see the biggest opportunities for improvement in the average person's work?
We'll start with identifying those pain points we talked about. Make a list of the tasks or processes that are just driving you crazy or that are taking forever to do.
Once you've got that list, think about how technology could help streamline things or even automate them completely.
And don't think you have to do this all alone, right? Talk to your colleagues, brainstorm some ideas, and see if your company already has tools or resources you can use.
I think that's a great point to wrap up on. Stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to use technology to change your work and even your life for the better.
We hope this deep dive has inspired you to take action and explore what digital transformation can do for you. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep innovating, and keep pushing the limits of what's possible.